Thank you very much. First of all, welcome and thank you for joining our webinar. My name is Graham Tidy and I'm the UKTI Manager of the Northeast Brazil region. Our goal at UKTI is to facilitate partnerships between British and Brazilian companies, be that through market research, opportunity promotion, event management or trade missions. And the purpose of this webinar is to draw attention to the great many infrastructure opportunities in Brazil which British companies can take advantage of. Today, I'll be joined by Paulo Rezende, who is the Executive Director of the Fundação Dom Cabral. The Fundação Dom Cabral was recently ranked by the Financial Times as the top business school in Latin America, so we're delighted to be able to offer you such an expert speaker. Before Paulo begins speaking specifically about infrastructure, I'd like to give you a brief overview of Northeast Brazil and why it deserves your attention. The northeast of Brazil is about 22 times the size of the UK. As a region, it boasts a bigger GDP than most Latin American countries. It's also growing faster than any other region in Brazil, so economically speaking, the region is waking up. Logistics in the northeast of Brazil have been greatly improved by the improvement and construction of international ports in most coastal states. There are also 9 international airports here to facilitate business travel. The success of the port Suape in particular, which is home to Brazil's largest oil refinery and the hemisphere's largest shipyard, has encouraged multinational companies such as Fiat, Kraft Foods, Ford and Coca-Cola, among many others, to set up factories in the region. This growth has led to a huge increase in commerce as employment and access to individual wealth has improved, and in fact more than 50 shopping malls have opened in the Northeast since 2006. So when one thinks of Brazil, the cities of Rio and São Paulo come to mind, but when looking for business opportunities, this shouldn't be the case. The Northeast is booming and has far less competition than a British company would find elsewhere. So that's enough from me. I'll now pass you on to Paulo Rezende, who will go into the infrastructure specifics. At the end of the presentation, we'll provide links to our services for those who want to pursue partnerships with Brazilian companies through the UKTI. So over to you, Paulo.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. For me, it's a pleasure to talk to you about the infrastructure in Brazil with the focus on the Northeast region. Before I start, let me give you the rationale of my presentation. Of course, we cannot talk about the Northeast region as an isolated region in Brazil. So I will go to the big scenario. I will go through what's going on in Brazil, and always I will go back to that region and see what kind of opportunities and the challenges that the Northeast region faces in Brazil. And I will start by saying that Brazil today has the worst infrastructure performance among the BRIC countries. As you can see on the slide, Brazil, in terms of airports, is the last one. Ports, also the last one. We only we only win, we tie with Russia in terms of railroads. We are not good also on highways, so the overall infrastructure in Brazil is the last one among the BRIC countries. Now, if we consider what the effect of this infrastructure on our competitiveness, we will see that we lose a lot of money. So we need to face this situation in 2 ways. Either we keep losing this competitiveness, which is not good at all, or we invest in infrastructure as never in the last, compared to the last 20 to 30 years. So, but the question is it worth investing in infrastructure in Brazil? And if it is, why it becomes an opportunity? So let me present you the demand side of the coin. And then I will talk about the supply side. In terms of supply, I mean supply in infrastructure. So let's talk a little bit about demand. Demand is growing in Brazil. If we check some variables from the last decade, you will see that infrastructure demand is growing very fast. In terms of air passenger traffic, in the last 10 years, we had a growth in percentage of 171%. The same for light vehicle sales, 147%, agricultural exports, 140, container flow at ports, 132, and iron ore export, 96%. These 5 variables show us that we do have concentrated demand in the last 10 years. Now, for any manager that seeks opportunities to invest in the country, not only the past demand or the demand that is on the pipeline is important, but also the future demand. So let's talk a little bit about the future demand. And I start presenting you the most important productive chains in Brazil, the ones that require infrastructure, logistics, the most. Starting with the soybean, corn, and cattle. As you can see on the map, there is a large area in Brazil that is the size of Europe except Russia, that is demanding logistics, that is demanding, highways, railroads, waterways. It's demanding everything. Now, if we go to the other map, when we put the sugar cane, and then the northeast region is part of this productive chain, we will see that we have a very high concentration of demand on the central part of the country and also a little bit on the northeast region. Now, if we go to mining and siderurgy, what we have is also a high concentration on the central part and also go into the northeastern part and the northern part of the country. Finally, if we go to the industry, vehicles, cement, petroleum, paper and cellulose, and fertilizers, then we have a map of the most important productive chains in Brazil and how they are concentrated. So let's talk a little bit about the dynamics of this demand. We go from the southern part of the country, going to the southeastern part in the direction of the central regions, the northern regions, and we have the northeastern region on the right side, and there is an empty space in between the very concentration of demand and the region that we are interested today. We'll talk about this later because this empty space will give us some directions about the opportunities on the northeast region. Now, let me present you some maps that show the flows of these demands on the last years and also in the near future. The how can we read the map? Is like this. The thicker the lines, the bigger the demand. So let's go on the commodity-based flows in 2012. As you can see, we had a concentration of demand flows on the southern and the southeastern part of the country, going a little bit to the central part of the country, and some concentrations on the northern. Apparently, in 2012, we didn't have much concentration of flows going to the northern part, to the northeastern part. Now let's go to the 2015, and as you can see, that region is becoming more and more connected to these flows. Now, this is a commodity flow. It means that we're talking here grains, we're talking fertilizers, we're talking iron ore, and something of sugar cane. But let me project now the two maps about the general cargo-based flows. In 2012, we had this situation here, and now on 2015, and we have a new map where that empty space between the rest of the country and the northeast region is now more connected with more flows and thicker flows. And finally, let me project to you both maps, one about the commodity flows and the general cargo one. The commodity flows show that the northeastern region is still a region that does not have very thick flow, demand flows as compared to the ones going in the central and the northern direction. However, when we go to the other one, the general cargo flows, we see that that region is very, very well connected to the rest of the country. What is the lesson that we have here in terms of demand? Is that any opportunities for the northeast region will be connected to not to commodities, but to cargoes with more added value, which means that in terms of transportation models, we will have something more related to airports, to the coastal line navigation in terms of container flows, and also highways. So let's go, let's keep this in mind and see the other side of the coin. The question is, despite the growing demand, Brazil is really a country with a very low supply in terms of infrastructure, mainly related to logistics. And let me show you some of the conditions that we have. And now, starting with the highway, as I said, the northeastern region will be very dependent on highways. Well, what is going on in Brazil, and that region is not isolated from this trend. If you look at the right side of the slide, the left side of the slide, we will see a stretch of a road with very good conditions. Double lanes, side lanes, shoulders, everything that we need to create efficiency in terms of highway logistics. On the right side, we have a road which is a public road. The other one is privatized. The public one is a very different condition, very poor, as a matter of fact. Well, let's see what goes on with the numbers, with the figures on the northeast region. In terms of toll roads, we have a very, very small percentage of toll roads, but and also we have a lot of non-paved roads. What's going on is, if you look at the right side on the bottom part of the slide, we will see that public roads in Brazil, they go from great to terrible, increasing the mileage of bad ones. And on the other side, if you see the private ones, it's the contrary. The good ones, they have more mileage. Well, so what is going on the northeast part of the country in terms of opportunities for highways? They will face more and more privatized or concession projects. This is a great, great opportunity because Brazilians now recognize that private or toll roads are better than the public ones, despite the fact that sometimes they complain about the tolls. But of course, it happens everywhere in the world. Now, let's go to the other slide, which shows the railroad condition in Brazil. Railroads in Brazil, they have a very, very low density. In other words, we have only 29,000 kilometers of railroads, and the ones that really have been used are only 11,000 kilometers. If we compare to U.S., you see that it's a big difference. If we compare to China, Canada, Russia, it's a big difference. Now, we say that Brazil is going to expand its railroad system to serve some regions that we have just empty space in terms of railroad. The question is, what is the region, or what are those regions? I must say to you that I don't see the northeast region as a region that will be, the focus of railroad expansion in Brazil. The central part of the country and the northern region will be served by the railroad expansion project in Brazil because the commodities are there, as you could see on the other maps. Now, let's talk about ports. The Brazilian ports are very concentrated on the southeastern port, mainly Santos, and the other one on the southern region called Paranaguá. Well, this concentration is not good at all because these ports are critical and unsatisfactory in terms of efficiency. So we predict that the northeastern region will play a very important role on the port expansion in Brazil. We already have some ports like Swap in Pernambuco. We have also the Pecém port, the Aratu port in Bahia. So we can say that, you know, we are very sure that ports in the northeast region of the country will be a very nice opportunity. So if we look at the Brazilian transportation matrix today, 58% of everything we transport, we move by highways. So any investments in Brazil, of course, will have to prioritize on the short run highways, because we don't want to rupture, we don't want to break the flows of the most important productive chains in Brazil. However, the waterways and the railroads will take part of these, will increase in percentage. So, since the Northeast region, as I said, will not be focused in terms of railroads, I must say that the opportunities in terms of cargo will be concentrated on highways and waterways. Now, that is cargo, but let's talk a little bit about passengers. Brazilian airports have been operating have operated in a saturated condition for a long time. So 2 years ago, we started one of the most important projects in Brazil, which is the airport concession. We have already privatized about 6 of the 10 most important airports in the southeast region, which we have the most of the passengers concentrated in Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, Belo Horizonte, Brasilia, and now we are moving to privatize other airports. We have one already privatized on the northeast region, which is in Natal, Rio Grande do Norte. It already operated during the World Cup and operated fine. So we predict that the next trend in terms of airport concession will be moving on the southern direction. I'm talking about the Porto Alegre, Curitiba airports, and also on the northeast region. And then I'm talking about the Salvador, Recife, and Fortaleza airports. So the suppliers, airport investors will have a great opportunity in terms of airport concessions. And finally, let's talk a little bit about urban mobility. Brazil today is becoming more and more and more an urban country. And the Northeast region has the metropolitan areas are concentrated most of their population, most of its population. So if we look at other metropolitan regions in Brazil, such as São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, and if we look what kind of projects we have to deal with the urban mobility on those two regions. They are concentrated on subways, on bus corridors, what they call BRTs, bus rapid transit, and also the so-called light vehicle transit. It is a good opportunity because let's say that the reference on the Northeast region in terms of metro lines or subways, tubes, today is in Bahia. The metro, the tube in Bahia is already privatized. And the other governors from all the other states on the Northeast region, they are sure that the public budget will not be able to comply with the demand. So we'll have a great movement in terms of privatization of mass transit on that region. Well, now, Brazil, and what is the timing? That is the question now. What is the timing for these investments? Well, we need to rush. We need to rush because these slides show you that if we look at the infrastructure, that's on the middle of the slide. If we look at the investment gap in Brazil, that gap is very, very large. And the so-called PAC, which is the most important public package for infrastructure investment in Brazil, it's not going okay because of PAC has a very low percentage of operational projects. I mean that it's very hard in Brazil for the government to go from the paper to the reality. Bureaucracy is very complex. So I mean that the infrastructure investment in Brazil will be, for sure, no matter the next president, on the side of the private sector. Well, so we need to increase, and how much this investment will be. This slide shows that we need to increase the percentage of investment on, compared to our, as a percentage of our GDP. So I believe that the bottom of this slide shows you that investments will be, first of all, on airport. The airports will show a very good ground for private investments. Then after that, highways, railroads, and waterway and port investments. Now, let me show you the new map of Brazil in terms of highways if the projects, public and private ones, are accomplished. That is going now, and then we predict this one until 2020, and this one until 2030. This will be the Brazilian map with concessions or public partnership projects. So as you can see, is a continent. Because of the Brazilian size, very, very like a continent. So we have a continent of highway opportunities in Brazil. And of course, as you can see, the Northeast region is an integral part of this scenario of opportunities. If we go to railroads, this is the scenario now. These are the projects for the next 5 years, and then we have for the next 10 years, and finally the 2030. As you can see, there are not many projects for the Northeast region, and those projects for the Northeast region, I must say to you that they will be questioned in terms of demand. So I will say that I don't put the railroad as a priority for the Northeast region. If we were talking about the Central region, if we're talking about the Northern region, my opinion would be different. In terms of ports, the Northeast region will concentrate a lot of investments. As you can see, we predict about $12 billion in investments for the Northeast region in the next 5 years. And I must say that the port of Salvador, the port of Suape, Pecém, and some other small ports in Maceió, Alagoas, and in Cabedelo will be nice opportunities. Well, let me talk to you, let's just concentrate a little bit on ports now and talk about the opportunities on the Northeast. Brazil is thinking a lot about the coastal line navigation, attracting investments in this modal, transportation model. Well, the international ports in Brazil, they are very focused on long distance flows. So if we want to invest on the Northeast ports, I must say to you that we should look at the small ports as well as the largest ones, of course. But on the small ports, because these small ports will be suitable for the coastal line navigation in the near future in Brazil. And in terms of airport investments, as I said, that the next trend will be to privatize those airports that present the highest volumes in terms of passengers per year. And we have 3 good ones in the Northeast region: Salvador, Recife, and Fortaleza. They will be part of the next trend, as well as the projects related to light rail vehicles. We have one in Ceará. We will have others, I believe, in Pernambuco and also Bahia. In terms of subways or tubes, we already have one in Bahia, Recife, and we will have others. And also we cannot forget the bus rapid transit, which is a project that we already have in Pernambuco and Ceará. Now, my last slide is a question: what does it take for us to have all these projects and opportunities in place and working fine? First of all, I believe that the next president will have to minimize regulatory bottlenecks and some regulatory milestones uncertainties. Brazil is a country that still changes the rules until the last minute. And we cannot have this going on because investors need stability on the long run. Second, we need to increase the effective independence of the regulatory agencies in Brazil. Unfortunately, we had a kind of the regulatory agencies became, on the last years, very dependent on the political system. So now we have to make them more independent and technically more capacitated. Now, Brazil is a lack of confidence that we need to work and to increase confidence on contract enforcement. Some investors, they have a perception that the enforcement mechanisms in Brazil are still weak. So I believe that the next president will work with Congress to consolidate and make more robust the mechanisms of contract enforcement. Reduce delays in announcing concession programs due to legal conflicts. That is the bureaucracy that you need to reduce, bureaucratic ways until we go to the concession in the bid programs and processes. Finally, we have to create an intelligent and agile system to obtain environmental licenses. And I'm defending in Brazil today that we implement a rationale of concession processes where what I call the project, the technical project comes first, and then the bid project process comes after we have the technical project, because sometimes in Brazil on the bid processes, investors go without knowing about the complexities of those projects. So they find out the risks, the environmental complexity of those projects after they win. So this creates instability on the return and on the flows of the projects. So I would like to finish by saying that all the three main candidates in Brazil, they are conscious that we need to create a national infrastructure strategy that will provide Brazil with the infrastructure efficiency that Brazil needs. With that, I finish my presentation and I go back to you on the Q&A session.
Thank you, Paulo. Thank you so much for that presentation. And we have some questions come in. And the first one is, how can a British company bid for a proposal to work in Brazil?
I would like, well, I must say that that it depends on the, let's say, on the transportation model that we are talking. If they want to participate on the airport bid, they must go on a consortium together with other Brazilian companies, and by law, the public agency in Brazil, which is called Infraero. It used to be the sole airport manager in Brazil. They must have, until today, they must have 49% in terms of participation of the consortium. It tends to be lower, but still they must participate on any consortium. So I must say that for a British company participate, I would advise them to go with a Brazilian partner. Always, always with a Brazilian partner.
Thank you. Our next question is regarding the bids. How are they judged? Is this by cost, delivery time, or are there other parameters involved?
Well, I think that there are other parameters involved, and I must say that one big issue is which is increasing. It's the environmental issue. Well, I must say that you know, today in Brazil we still have a conflict between engineering and the environment. We are trying to fight to convince legislators in Brazil and policymakers that environment doesn't need necessarily to conflict with engineering. So I believe that the three candidates, they are aware that there is a time now, this time now for Brazil to have infrastructure projects that go on with the environment and engineering in synergy with each other instead of conflicting. And that, of course, will affect cost and reduce bureaucracy.
Thank you. And our next question is, what is the best way to be aware of the opportunities?
The best way to be aware of opportunities is to talk with Brazilian players, is to participate on events and seminars where we have Brazilian players, Brazilian companies that operate infrastructure in Brazil instead of only listening to the public, to the government side. Well, as in anywhere, government tends to sell paradise. So we sometimes are blind, and when we go, we invest without knowing the risks. I believe that the best way to decide how we are going to participate is to talk, network, and listen to those that already operate, because they will show both sides of the challenge and the opportunity, of course.
Thank you. Our next question is on recent concessions and future projects, what is the expected percentage of national production? And what are the ownership requirements for international joint ventures, percentage of Brazilian shareholders?
Good. In terms of highways, it's free. There is no limit. So we already have consortia in Brazil operating with more than 70% of international players in the consortia. If we go to airports, as I said, 49% should be given to the public agency, but the rest, 51%, can be breakdown free. However, there is for airports, there is one restriction that investors should have experience in operating airports above 20 million passengers per year. In terms of railroad, it's free. There is no restriction. And in terms of urban mobility, also no restriction at all. For coastal line navigation, there is one restriction that there should be a Brazilian partner. It doesn't matter the share, but they should have a Brazilian partner on the consortium.
Thank you. And we're now just going to pass back over to Felipe for his closing comments.
Thank you very much, Professor Paulo, for your presentation and for the Fundação Dom Cabral for their expertise. My name is Felipe Galoro. I work with Graham at the British Consulate in Recife, and I would like to quickly inform you about one of the services UKTI has to offer UK companies, which is easy to use, has shown a lot of results, and is available to you right now in the BizOp and BizOp Opportunities website. So this is our platform where all the business opportunities are published, regardless the sector. It is a free service, and you only need to create an account to select the sectors of your interest. To see the current business opportunities, you must click on the link shown in the green box below. Take a look at what's on offer. There you may research for specific sectors and countries. This is an example of business opportunities in the construction sector in Brazil. And this is how a business opportunity looks like. It is very simple and provides you basic information about what Brazil is looking for at this moment. If you'd like to receive more information about a business opportunity, you have to register your interest using the button below, and our teams will contact you shortly. These are our contacts from UKTI Recife. If you have any doubts, please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for attending today's webinar. Once you leave the webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate if you could complete that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 hours with a link to view the recording of today's webinar. On behalf of UKTI and our presenters, thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.